Four, three, two.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Frethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LP FM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, November 6th, 2022. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5. And as usual, we have our co-host, Wombat, on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Good to see all of you.
Yep. Makes good radio. Our guests are Boudreaux from Kentucky. Welcome.
Hey.
Dread Pirate Higgs, all the way from Western Canada.
Arr.
John Richards you're in London, aren't you? Right around that area? England?
No.
It's just the background.
Just the background.
That's a clever green.
Background.
I'm on the south coast, about 15 miles south of London.
Oh, cool. Digital Frethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you think that you're the only non-believer in your town, well, I'm willing to bet you're not. In Knoxville, here in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us, soon to be 1,100. The Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. We'll tell you more about them after the mid-show break, so stick around. Wombat, what's your topic today?
It's just a matter of perception. And maybe Christians are right the whole time, and it's just the way how you look at it. That's all the matter of influence. But before we get into that, that's what I like to call our main course, our main dessert. I do like a little bit of an appetizer. I'm sure you guys do too. How about some noodles? We'll throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation.
Arr. I am called to invoke the power of the true creator of the universe, the drunken tolerator of all lesser and more recent gods, and maintainer of gravity here on Earth. May the great flying spaghetti monster rouse himself from his stupor and let his noodly appendages ground each of us in our seats.
Ramen. You know, that was such good noodles, but I do like a secondary appetizer called How Everyone's Been Doing. How everyone's been doing. We'll start with Dread Pirate Higgs. Wonderful invocation.
Yeah, thank you. And this may be an invocation given at the upcoming inaugural council meeting of our new city council, incoming council.
Okay.
It's been an ongoing struggle with the BC humanists to urge municipalities within BC at least, and throughout other provinces to desist with the invocation of the Christian God during any meetings, especially inaugural meetings. But this time, in Grand Forks last time, they didn't. It was a purely secular thing. But we have 3 incoming pretty staunch Christians coming in. So they may try to sneak that in. So we're having a contingent going to be present at the council meeting in that event so that we can make our own invocation. And, and let them know that they're not representing the only people with religious beliefs.
So, sneak peek, we're talking about perception today. I see, John. Here's my quick point. It's such a shame that we have to waste so much energy on this, people on a council who have imaginary friends, from my perspective, who now we have to battle and be like, listen, we have to fill out all these paperworks, drive here, do this, rehearse this speech, just so that you don't get a chance to shift the narrative on your imaginary friend being less imaginary than it actually is. What a waste of time when you could be serving the greater good. John Richards, what do you think?
Well, this issue of councils holding prayer meetings at the start of their deliberations happens in other countries too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that Freedom from Religion Foundation in California, back in May, I think, they won a case against a city council that had been holding Christian meetings, Christian assemblies at the start of their general business, illegally, unconstitutionally, I should say. And more recently, the judge awarded costs against the city. So they have recouped all their expenses spent on lawyers and so on.
Very good.
That's good news, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Always topped on the news. John Richards, how you been and what's going? Oh, you don't have to give us the full news preview, but how are you not stressing yourself out by paying attention to the news? Because I've always synonymously understood news as bad stuff that's happened around the world.
Not always. No, there's some good stuff too. I put the bad stuff at the beginning, and then I left it. It's like main course and then sweet or dessert.
Okay. Okay. How you been, my friend?
So I haven't personally suffered very much, but I've got children here who have had such sore throats they haven't been able to speak. It's been so peaceful.
Not bad. Last week I got double vaccinated. I did get the influenza and then a COVID booster. I said, don't spread it out. Just give me both of them at the same time.
Yeah,
Didn't get a reaction from no reaction from either one, aside from just a lightly sore arm. It's like my 6th COVID booster so far. My body's just like, yep, we know what to do. We're done. You're fine. Go out the door.
You didn't get sick at all?
I didn't get sick at all.
Wow, I did.
I've only gotten sick on the 3rd booster, and literally everyone else afterwards just been like, "Oh, thank you for the free medicine."
I've had 4, and I've gotten sick after every one, I think.
That's good. I think that's a good thing. I want to have that immuno response, but we'll see. Anyway,
I've had 4, and I had my last one a week ago, and it was a cocktail. It was a little bit for the original COVID and a little bit for the more recent one. Blended.
Oh, interesting. Larry Rhodes, aside from not getting sick, how else have you been?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Kind of boring. I put my bike away last week, so I don't have it out now. It'll be next spring, I guess, probably before I get it out. And then just working and playing computer games. And as long as I'm keeping on, I feel pretty good at 72.
Not bad. Okay. Boudreaux, how you been?
I have been well. It was Halloween since we last talked, right?
Truth, yes.
So we did our 3rd annual candy pult, where kind of in keeping with social distancing, we just launched candy to the kids. But we really got the physics down. It was me and George.
We got the physics down. That's great.
We got the physics down. We didn't hit anyone in the face. That's good.
Okay.
We never have.
Okay.
But yeah, we could get it. We told them where to stand. We had chalk line drawn. And
I imagine there would have to be some sort of like ordinance of that, and then you have like a 3-point calibration strip to make sure everything's good, and then
a little bit lower. I can't tell you how many times I told the kid a little bit lower, and they didn't listen, and I shot it to them, and they missed it because I was like, I told you lower.
Now here's the problem. What is a consistent projectile?
What's
go
the
ahead
question?
and ask John Richards first. It was better than mine. John Richards, go ahead.
Did they have to catch it in their mouths?
No, that would be too risky because we were launching like little mini Snickers bars and things like that. So
because
I didn't want to hurt him.
It couldn't be like loose bags of M&Ms because sometimes there's one more M&M than the other, and that would change the weight distribution, and like more mass with the same amount of energy is flying way further than you would expect. Has to be like a consistent thing, right? Like Starburst.
Generally speaking, we had 5 or 6 different candy types that we kind of got the hang of, and they really, we were about 50% in the bag. But
was there a toffee apple amongst them?
Nice. Have you ever thought of publishing in the Journal of Halloween Science?
No, that's a thing.
No, I'm sure it exists somewhere, but it'd be a really good article.
Halloween
it is not
physical review.
It's there if you're willing to look for it. Speaking of looking for things, we're talking about perspective today, guys. And why are we talking about perspective? Because I saw an enlightening meme on the internet. It was one based on politics, but it did make me think. And the idea was a picture where you had 2 candidates you can vote for. One was a free Krispy Kreme donut, and the second one was burning down your grandmother's house. And I was like, why are these 2 things the candidates? But also, why is the distribution of votes like 49.9% and 50.1% or something like that? And I was like, isn't that funny in the way where it always feels like whoever you vote for, you're on the precipice of disaster of going completely the other way. And like, you can look at candidates and see how one is like clearly a better choice than the other, but yet half the population still supports like this terrible outcome that we just barely missed. Like, I totally understood that idea of the meme, and I was going to the comment section and I was like, why does it always seem like this? Why is my perception that politics, especially when you're voting, because we have voting in America, always seems like these 2 desperately polarized options? Free Krispy Kreme donut, bringing down your grandmother's house. And one of the comments was like, well, it's not always bad it's based on your perception, because some people could see these two choices as diabetes and killing a house with a billion venomous spiders in it, right? Like it's just a matter of like, how do you look at these two things? And maybe that colors your impression of what side you want to stay on, or what things that you're willing to listen to from a particular person or group or dogma. And I'm like, man, doesn't that also apply to religion as well? And maybe just because I've been on the secular side for so long, I have a bad perception on the religious point of view. Maybe I've lost touch with that. What do you think, John?
I've got stuff to say about this.
Go on ahead.
Well, a perception is purely subjective, isn't it? It's coming from you. And so I don't know why they think it's so important, because you've made it up in your head. It's your perception. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And I met this, and it was a surprise to me because, having been brought up in the science regime, that people even consider it worth thinking about. But I met it for the first serious time when I was debating a Muslim in Manchester University. And he kept saying, from the Islamic perception, when you're a Muslim, your perception is, well, give me some evidence, That was all he had. You can watch this debate. It was well recorded by the Islamic Society at the university. And that was all I was giving evidence, This is why we've got the evidence. It's here. Anybody can see it, given the right opportunity. And he was saying, well, my perception is this. I was thinking, why?
Why do you see it that way? I get that I'm not even disagreeing that you have that perception, but is it meritable?
Yes,
is there a justification behind it? Can you demonstrate any of it? Or is it just an uninformed opinion? What's the difference between that and your perception? Dre, what do you think?
Well, I was going to point out, and most people don't appreciate this, is that we don't have any direct experience with reality. We are limited to our senses, and our brain interprets those signals and whatnot to the stimuli. And based on our knowledge, based on our upbringing, we interpret what we experience, and that of course flavors our understanding of it. So perception, truly speaking, is not the end result; it's the beginning. And if perception, you could have faulty eyesight, or you could have missing the savory part of your taste buds, or bad hearing in one ear, So these all affect perception, which then it limits or has an effect on what our ability to interpret that information is at the end.
Right. I think our perception is very much informed by how we reason. And if we have a poor means of reasoning the world around us, that will lead to a poor perception. And why settle for something that's poor when through some meager effort on your part, you can have a higher standard of evidence, a higher standard of understanding, a better epistemology, if you will. All these things can be beneficial to you and improve your perception, which directly helps you. Isn't that great? Larry Rhodes, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say about perception and our senses. We don't really have a choice. There's not like something else we can use instead of that. Even if we use machines to measure something, we still have to use our eyes and ears or whatever to read the machine's readout. And that's coming up on this election. This really amazes me. I mean, if one side gets votes, then they're fine with it. If the other side gets votes, they're not fine with it. It's got to be a flawed system. Now, if the system is flawed, how come their guy getting votes and winning is fine? Our guy's getting votes and winning is fraud. Right. Now, it's like they're going to say, well, yeah, this system is flawed. What else are we going to use? Just automatically give one side all the offices just because they are not satisfied with the system? It's a double standard. It makes no sense at all. Why should their candidate get preference?
Right. Yes, it's a double standard. It's a double standard. Buja, what do you think?
Yeah, so this makes me think of I think it was a cartoon originally, like a drawing, where you've got, one guy standing by the number 6, and another guy standing, on the other side looking at number 9, and they're kind of like arguing. And I think the point of the cartoon originally was, hey, really don't get mad at the other person. It's all about perspective. And then somebody kind of turned it into a meme, and you've probably seen this, but it's like, no, it's not. It's either a 6 or a 9. We need to figure it out.
Yeah,
like
whoever put it down there, whoever put it there, put it in a sequence that has a meaning.
But I think the point of the original thing was, it's all about perspective, and we should respect everyone's perspective. And it's kind of like, we should respect people. Now we don't have to respect their perspective
until they show that they don't deserve it.
So there's a line. There's that fine line of respecting a person to the point where you don't want to cause conflict unnecessarily, right? But there's also the need of having perspective on a near objective reality, or at least something nominal to the point where you can use it meaningfully and inform actions in a informed, empathetic, socially acceptable format. You can't just be like, I think this is okay, and you do it. You have to have that be informed in the context of hopefully a greater society, or at least rationalized to the point where you can actually test it and verify if you're right or wrong about certain things. And that's what I like about math, but also math is an abstract tool that we should be applying to real life as well. Like that just means in life, we need to really define our variables. We need to understand who's right, who's wrong. And there is a right and a wrong. And if we don't know what's right yet, we don't know. We need to recognize that as a don't know. We need to come up with better methods to know. But there is right courses of action, and we can't necessarily just
better methodologies than other for justified claims, right?
And the one that's just like, well, can't we just all get along? It's like, yes, and we can be right at the same time too. We don't have to pick one or the other. And maybe it is a 6 or a 9. I agree. We should fight for that. John Richards, I saw you with your hand. What's up?
Yeah, well, while I agree with Dredd about we have to form a representation of reality in our heads, I think the representation that we form is bloody good. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do things like play disc golf, for example.
Yeah. So, speaking of which, can an English person say bloody on an American radio station? I think that's acceptable. Go on ahead. You get away with it.
I can get worse than that. Anyway, the thing is that I don't like, if there's a big need for interpretation between, the observations and how you have perceived them, then it's more opinion than it is evidence. Because in my materialistic world, matching a concept with observations should be just like playing Snap,
Right.
There should be... It should be as simple as that. There's no need for any interpretation. Is this the same as that? Yes or no?
Right. And like one of my teachers said, it's okay to be wrong as long as you recognize it and are willing to improve a process. And the problem with, being very courteous with perceptions and not equivocating all of them is that you are willing to support wrong perceptions as well, or bad methodologies. And when we can say this is right and that's wrong, now it's good to understand what the process was behind it and improve and get a better process so more of us can be right, because that's a benefit for everybody. That's the step that a lot of people are crucially missing when we say, hey, you're wrong. It's like, well, why are you making an argument? I'm not. I'm trying to improve a process here. Dredd, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say, just further to the point I was trying to make, was that that our perceptions are not infallible, and our memories are certainly not infallible. And I think that's where a lot of people are led astray by their own sense of being right about things, like seeing things the way they are, or remembering things the way they were. That is just not the case, because our memories certainly aren't a recording. It's an act of construction. And, and the more people can recognize that, then they recognize, or they have the potential to recognize, that they are fallible, and that they have to be mindful of how their memories and their perceptions are actually constructions of their world, not not a direct experience of the world.
Or more bluntly, people can be lied to because we don't have that direct
self-deceived,
access
right?
to self-deceived, yeah, or like deliberately manipulated by those
Right.
who don't have their best interests at heart, and but put on a very genuine face and can absorb time, money, thoughts, advertising, propaganda, political actions against the favor of those who are their most adherent followers.
Yeah.
We see this every day as part of the perception of a secular minded body. And it frustrates us, it scares us, it commits us to do actions, to do shows like this. But it's not against, on a personal level, against the people who, who are probably victimized by this, or who are adherents to this, or sycophants, or just general supporters, or quiet people on the median. We do this show to remind people that it's the nature of the lack of critical thought that's getting us into worse cases with regard to how we treat each other and how we inform our actions. And if we just rely a bit more on critical thought, regardless of what we think the outcome is, we are proponents for critical thought. If we do critical thinking, things will get better, guaranteed. It may not even be the way how I see it or I want to have it, but I guarantee if we all do this uniformly, working together on that aspect, we can get much better than where we're at right now. And I'm not saying we're not in a bad place now, but I'm just saying we could be in a much better place now if we all just start through critical thinking. I had a comment before we go to the half. It's from Maximum Cover. He has an idea on prayer. This is his perception on prayer. Larry, maybe you'd like to touch bases on this.
All right.
I think Maximum Cover says, I think the perception on prayer is wrong. Prayer works. I keep seeing atheists commenting in various contexts on how prayers don't work, and I do nothing and do nothing, and I feel this is dangerous misapprehension of reality. I think it's misappropriation of reality. It's all right. It's all good. In its essence, prayer isn't any different from self-talk. There are messages you repeat to yourself, and that's how we know prayer works. What do you think, Larry?
Well, if he's talking about just the generic soothing activity of talking to yourself, sure. Meditation works, but that doesn't mean you're talking to a supernatural being. I'm glad he clarified that at the end, because when you say the word prayer, you're saying different things to different people.
Right.
And, I was about ready to come up with a reason why intercessory prayer doesn't work.
Right.
But no, I agree.
There's been some good studies
you can
on
get
that.
benefits from it. Huh?
Yeah.
But also from meditation or just sitting quietly in a room. That type of thing.
Boudreaux, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think prayer works in this context? In essence, prayer isn't any different from self-talk. There are messages you repeat to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're just down to semantics. Yeah, if his definition of prayer is, is self-talk, then sure. But I think probably what's happening here is he's trying to smuggle in the fact that he actually is praying to a God, and that's what's doing the work. And from his perspective, it's speaking to the God that is helping your body.
Right.
10-4.
Love to get more thoughts. Dred, what do you think?
Well, and I would agree. Definitely sounds like a smuggle. But there's certainly great meditations and self-affirmations that help build, your own self-esteem, your own self-image. Self-examination is a big one.
Right.
Sam Harris has this great app called Waking Up. I just recently subscribed to it. Getting mindfulness as opposed to calling it prayer, I think is probably more accurate.
honest.
More honest, yeah.
Right. John, what do you think?
Well, I thought that the idea behind a prayer was to achieve something, was to get some desire fulfilled, a bit like a spell.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I've always called it witchcraft.
yes, and if it's not that, like what's his name, Maximum Cover seems to be suggesting, if it's just hearing oneself talk in one's head, and that's, let's face it, that's unlikely to achieve any outcome, then he's using prayer to mean reiteration of concepts I like.
Yeah.
Here's my thought. I'm actually, this is sort of going back to the equivocation that we were talking to before. These are not the same things. Prayer is talking to, in the most used context, a different agent than yourself. Self-talk, which is the same number of syllables, is a completely different concept to most people in their usage than prayer. Prayer, I'm talking to somebody. I'm praying to blah, blah, blah. People don't pray to themselves. You pray to who you worship to, generally. Elsewise, you're just talking to yourself. Right. If you're praying to yourself, you're talking to yourself. Just call it self-talk. You don't have to add this extra step of baggage. And self-talk takes as many syllables to say as prayer. And I do believe in the power of self-talk. It's nice to be able to rationalize. You can talk to yourself out loud. You can do it in your head. You don't have to worship. You don't have to have baggage. You don't have to sit down. And you can do it in any context that you feel appropriate. And it does help you. It's great for it as an organization. But witchcraft also takes 2 syllables and involves spells and invocations and stuff like that. Why don't we call prayer witchcraft? If you're willing to call prayer self-talk, then be willing to call witchcraft prayer at the same time too, because they're all in that point the same thing, but you would probably not want to have that happen. So let's just be clear with what we're talking about here. Self-talk works, and in fact, prayer doesn't work. Because when you do intercessory prayer for people who are sick and they know they're being prayed for, it causes more stress in their lives, and they actually end up performing worse than when a placebo is used in its place.
We have a scientific study to show that result.
Yeah, we have multiple. We do that at least once a year. And it's crazy how each time it shows clearly that prayer actually makes things worse. Self-talk, great, do it. Prayer, you're actually better off not doing it at all. If you have a problem and you want to pray to get it fixed, just get it fixed. Don't pray to get it done, because you might actually be wasting more time in the process. What do you guys think? We need that break. Go ahead, Larry.
Stay tuned for the second half of the Digital Frethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break.
Okay, were you saying BRB?
No. I was saying I had one little comment I wanted to throw out.
Oh, you had a little comment.
Comment. I should I shouldn't even attempt to try any sign language.
It looked like you're saying BRB, and I was like, BRB, you have to walk away. You're gonna be AFK. Okay.
I'll use the chat for next.
No, use the video. Yeah. Believe it or not, so I do a deaf panel weekly conversation that's out of New Jersey, and there's 30 people in the Zoom room like this, and there's 15 different conversations going on, and you know when you're in the conversation because you're looking at the person who's doing the video, and they're looking at you, and so it's like everyone's talking about different things, but it's quiet, and you're only hearing the people that you're watching, and that's how you know you're in that group. It's very cool. I love it. Isn't that cool? And it's also taboo. It's taboo to leave your microphone on. You're supposed to turn it off. There's like a lot of other weird things too.
I see. So it's not a special software. It's just people using Zoom differently.
Exactly. And not only that, but this kind of video chatting was made first for the deaf community. In fact, the camera that's on the front of your phone was made as a service thing first. And people were like, why do people want to take pictures of themselves? There's already a camera on the back of the phone. It's like, trust me, the deaf community is going to love it. And then they're like, fine, we'll try it out. And next thing you know, it blew up, and they're just like, okay, put it for all the phones.
Yeah, they reckoned without it, all the narcissists who like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to start recording in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Frethought Radio Hour. I'm Dr. 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's talk for a moment about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 20th year, and we have over 1,000 members. We have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening in Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables, or if it's pretty, outside on the deck. We also have Tuesday evening Zoom meetups. If you'd like to join us, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheists.org or let'schatsE@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, meetup.com, or go to the website at knoxvilleatheist.org. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and look for a group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. That's right. Wombat, where do you want to pick up?
Guys, we're jumping back into the matter of perspective. Go ahead, John Richards.
Well, I want to pick up on Maximum Cover's thoughts that prayer is just self-talk.
Fair enough. Let's do it. Yeah.
Because recently I was flashed by the speed camera.
That means different things in America than it does in English. What do you mean by flashed?
I was photographed by the speed camera.
Okay.
I entered. They had my what do you call it, license plate in your country. We call it registration number. But anyway, I had my car. I was driving in an unfamiliar town, and suddenly I was trying to find my way, and trying not to hit anything.
Right.
And so I was being very careful, and suddenly a 30-mile-an-hour limit sign went past me before I could register it and react to it. So I was flashed for exceeding the speed limit. Now, if you only exceed it by less than 10%, you don't get points on your license. You get a training course.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
So I attended this driver training course, and one of the tips they gave us was talk your way through your driving. Say what you're doing. Say that I'm watching out. There's some parked cars. There might be something coming out from behind them, and here's a woman crossing the road with a baby and a buggy. So voice the reality you are experiencing, because it helps you to focus on the needs for reacting to it. So maybe that's what Maximum Recover is referring to when he's talking about messages that you repeat to yourself, but it's certainly not what I understand prayer to be.
Right. But there's also the danger of lack of context, because those who have a favorable position by the misinformation of a statement will continue to use that as ammunition to support their cause or their creed. Yeah. And he's saying prayer works. I think the atheist perception on prayer is wrong. And I think atheists are commenting on blah, 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 how prayer doesn't work. We are talking about different things if you're not talking about what we're talking about. Yeah. And you are trying to equivocate self-talk and prayer as the same thing. I don't think that's a fair equivocation. I feel like they clearly mean different things. And if they don't, be willing to call witchcraft prayer, because we hold that in the same context. It's a spiritual communication to something that's not to yourself. Anyway, Larry, what do you think?
I would like to ask him what he thinks of public ostentatious prayer, like the prayers at open meetings or the prayers that everybody join into after school and all that kind of thing. If it's just self-talk, then it's not prayer. It's not what they're doing. What are they doing?
Exactly. And why do they have to hold up an entire, political meeting to do stuff like that? Bujo, I think I saw you.
Yeah, no, so this makes me think of the idea that all of his evidence is on invisible things, right? So the thing that they're praying for, it's not like you're praying for a pot of gold and it appears, right? Or you're praying to grow back an arm that's been amputated. Those are, those are things that all of us atheists would be like, prayer works.
Yeah, if we saw that, absolutely.
The evidence that we're using here is stuff that's invisible. It's like, I feel better. Completely subjective, right?
Right.
And not to mention, we think that self-talk actually is at play here and doing the good. So it's not set up for something we can study. It's just words.
Great job, Bujo, because I can't self-talk an arm to grow back from my elbow if I lose it. I can't self-talk a dead family member back to life. Mm-hmm. So am I really praying at that point? Or am I really talking to myself? And if it's something that I can control and manage in my own life, like something I can test, something I can do through my own volition, I just need motivation for, why am I wasting time with prayer? I can just get that with self-talk.
Yeah. Right. And would he go as far to say intercessory prayer doesn't work? I mean, he's saying it's not prayer.
Right. We got to make sure we just have these well-defined variables. Sort of like how we were talking at the beginning of the show with math 6 and 9. It's good to know what we mean when we say things, because like our perception, we have a compromise of understanding when we take an idea, convert it into words, and give it to somebody else to hopefully have the same idea as we had. That is a work of compromise. So it's very clear that we very well define our variables so that there's no misunderstanding or unnecessary equivocation between terms that are not the same. And self-talk and prayer are not the same terms.
If you could pray a dismembered limb back into life, you'd go up in my estimation. type.
Yeah. Just tell me which God you're praying to then. And if you're praying to yourself, maybe we get you on the docket of
when do we get you on the news? That's
and
what
why should we limit
yeah.
that to growing back limbs? I want a third arm coming out of my chest.
Yes.
Science can help you with that. No, science can help you with that. So
Think how useful wings would be.
Yeah.
no, we don't want wings. All right. We're moving on. Do we have wings? Are so unnecessary. You know how much energy it would take to fly? There's like
course.
just staying up in the air is just like, man, like a hummingbird. They have to flap their wings.
You
like
have to have
30
about 20,000 calories a day just to...
I couldn't. Now, if you could eat more food,
no.
that's fantastic. There's a lot of people. We'd all run out of food immediately
No,
like that.
You guys are being boringly practical. These are magic wings. They work with no energy.
Oh, these are magic wings.
Think how many
Okay,
lives
okay,
they've saved from falling. You
just
pop your wings out,
teleportation.
fall.
Give me teleportation. You mean I have to fly to work now? It's just like, dang it. Down the highway.
Many years ago, when my now 15-year-old daughter was a little toddler, she went to a party. It was an angel or cherub party or something in the dress that they have to wear, And she came back. They'd given her some wings, which you put your arm through these elasticated bands, and there are these little wings on the back. And when she got home, she ran around in the garden trying to get off the ground.
What adorable kids.
It was so cute.
Guys, I have another potential equivocation here. And this is by Aztec Summer, who asks, would I be considered Islamophobic or anti-Semitic if I am anti-religion? And I think that's an interesting question. So how about this? I'll try to do a quick weighing in. Similar to how we had like with prayer and self-talk, they are different things. You might even be able to try to categorize them in the same thing, and that could be more fair, but these are two different terms, and they mean different things. And Islamophobic and anti-Semitic versus anti-religion, I feel like are three different concepts, two of which are sort of falling into like a prejudice-y point of view, whereas one is strictly not against the person or the culture, but about a dogmatic means of thinking that is not tied to any particular group, because a person would be anti-religious if they were a Scientologist and a white guy, or a Scientologist and a brown guy. It doesn't really matter. It's just like, I hate this train of thinking. That's the problem. That's why I'm anti-religion. And I am anti-religion. I generally don't support it, but there are definitely atheistic religions, and in my head it's just like, you're taking an extra step to get to the same place I'm at. Jed, what do you think?
Well, I was going to add to that. I used to be a Freemason, and I probably mentioned this before. But when I had come to realize that I no longer believed in the Christian God, I spoke to one of the senior fellows at the lodge and told him that, and told him I just felt I could no longer be a Mason in good conscience. And he says, "Oh, you're one of those guys that hate God." I was like, "No, that's you're making an assumption about what I think or what I feel without directly asking me. It's conflating two ideas that don't belong to one another. In the same way that a person who claims this is an atheist is not Islamophobic or anti-Semitic. It's just it's a different thing entirely."
Right. It's a much more charged thing. John Richards, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with both of you because if you are anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, then you are anti-theistic. You are against religion, but you've gone a step further. You've decided to victimize these people and demonize them, and that's not necessary. It's not a compulsory part of not believing in a religion.
Actually,
and it can also be
it's more pointed than that. I think it's the difference between ad hominem, right, attacking the person, or attacking the idea. So
it also leaves ground.
I respect the right of people to believe in what they want, but I don't have to respect the specific belief. That's what I can attack.
I also hate the hypocrisy that can come with being Islamophobic when you can also be very genial to Christian ideology. It's like, oh, I just hate this imaginary guy, but I love my imaginary guy. I was like, well, that double standard is just as problematic. Whereas anti-religion is sort of like, it's a firm, grounded understanding of these are the things that I don't like. Everything falls into it, but anything outside of it that's like person based doesn't apply to it. It's just this very consistent platform. Boudreaux, love to get your thoughts on this and your previous comment. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you were tying that in, but my thoughts would be that first off, if anti-religion, can we have a little asterisk on that and say, except the flying spaghetti monster, just to be clear. I'm anti-religion, with the exception of flying spaghetti monster.
I got some problems with spaghetti because it's a lot of carbs. I like my protein content to be a lot higher than that. But I respect people who eat a lot of pasta. I'm totally fine with that. But if I only have that to eat and beer, and as an asexual, stripper factories don't do that much for me anyway. There's not a lot calling me there, but I totally respect people doing it. So like, go for it. Anyway,
so I totally agree with you guys on the point. We're anti-religion is very different than, or anti specific religion is very different than being racist or prejudiced. But I would point out that someone famous has stood up against, and Dread Pirate probably knows where I'm going with this, has stood up against someone who was against religion, calling him an Islamophobe, getting really angry on live TV.
Oh, yes.
And that was Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
And he attacked Sam Harris pretty hard for, really, again, just like you guys said and Ty said in the beginning, you're challenging the dogma, the ideas, not the people.
Right.
Like anti-Muslim is so very different than anti-Islam. I mean, those are two.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I have so not to do these weird qualifications, but my sister's Muslim, and I love my sister, and she knows that I'm an atheist, and she, from her own religion, is supposed to look at me as like, you're an apostate, you're not part of our faith, you're outsider, but we love each other. It's so much more of a better understanding of like, hey, I'm not on board with the messaging, but we love the person underneath. You can separate those two. And I think what religion is really good at is making people identify with the message when there really is a person behind that. And it's hard to separate those two. That's my thought. And it's also weird too, because John Richards, I saw your hand, but it's also weird because when a religious person looks at an atheist, they're like, well, you are in a religion too. It's like, no. Yeah. Atheism is not a religion. There's no dogma here. It's a position I have as a person that I'm also willing to dismiss or get rid of as soon as I have good evidence. It's a weird situation where people have to immediately identify with an idea. John Richards, what's up?
Well, I want to use this opportunity to segue back to our part one subject of perception, because I'm wondering whether our attitude towards anti-theism and then specific religious hatred is something that's peculiarly perceived by non-believers, whereas believers perceive themselves to be in the right religion, and therefore it's legitimate to hate all the other religions, because that's what their God wants them to do. Religion is inherently divisive.
Right. And it ambiguifies who the person is who's holding the religion, because they have to be part of a flock. Larry, sorry for not getting to you. What's up?
It's okay. Well, the thing about it is, one is ideas and the other is people. Right. People have rights and deserve respect until such time as they don't. They prove that they don't deserve respect. But ideas don't deserve respect simply for being. They constantly change, and they have to constantly be reevaluated to see how they affect people. Yeah. So it's a whole difference between people and ideas, and one deserves respect automatically, the other doesn't.
Right. And the benefit of, I feel like a lot of Christian, a lot of Islam, or a lot of grounded popular religions piggyback on the concept of, well, if you identify with this religion, then all the rights you have as a person are now applied to the religion as well. And therefore you can't challenge the religion because that's seen as a bad thing.
Right.
And we have inherent rights, and because we're part of this person, and we should be part of this governing body because this governing body controls the people, and we are part of the people as well. It's like, no, that's the infestation of, dogma that seems nice. The perception that we have as secular minded people is that this is infiltrating the common good of rights of man and women, of course, and everything else in between. It's the religion that's trying to piggyback on a lot of stuff that it doesn't have a right to have. And why do we give it to so without a fight? Why do we let these, council members start, why do we let council members who have these beliefs come into council in the first place? They're voted in, sure. But now why do they get the chance to, orchestrate their religious beliefs in front of everyone at the beginning of every council meeting? Like, that's such a gross overuse of their power and overstepping of like everyone else's interests.
Yeah, that's when rights become privilege.
Right.
I was going to point out a couple of things here too. Is and again, this is just reiterating, but putting it in a different way. Is there's human rights which should be respected, but you don't need to respect the content, right? You can respect the right for people to publish books, but you don't have to respect the content. You don't have to like it. And I was going to say also, just to Tyrone, you said your sister is a Muslim and characterized you as an apostate? Because an apostate is someone who previously believed in Islam and stopped believing. That's actually an apostate. Right. So
that's probably the better way of saying it. Yeah, we can just go with that. Yeah. So my family is very weird. I have a mother who's a Jehovah's Witness. I have a sister who's a Christian. I have another sister who's a Muslim. And so when we all pray or not pray around the Thanksgiving table, it's a very weird procession of messages going down different wires, I can imagine. So very weird for everybody.
Is there a Ouija board involved?
So my mom wouldn't allow the Ouija board because of her truth. But it's always these weird steps for everything. Yeah, it's always very interesting. So I got one more question that we'll go through. This one comes from Cosmic Cherry. It's more of an open-ended discussion. It's based on the idea of, hey, as I became more atheist or more outside of my religion, outside of that dogma, I started seeing people differently. That's how my perception changed. So here's the comment. Being religious has warped my perception of reality. I grew up in a heavily Catholic family. Throughout my life, my mom has been saying that she is against indoctrination, yet she and my dad have been doing that to me my entire life. Even though I'm now an atheist, I still get this awful feeling that something is watching me from time to time. Her indoctrination has made it so hard for me to unlearn this stuff. Is anyone else having these same issues? Boudreaux, you grew up heavily Catholic. What do you think?
Yeah, I did heavily, maybe. Mom,
Catholic.
Very Catholic. We did Catholic church, Catholic mass. Even Wednesday, like Catholic development. Wow. And I had the same thing for a while. After calling myself an atheist, which took a little while too. I had this feeling of somebody watching, and I was very, very late to actually be willing to say GD, which I can't say on the radio, but you know what I'm saying. I even as an atheist, I would sing lyrics to a song that had it in it, and I would swap the words out for something else. Really, it took a while.
I know. Yeah.
I think I've said on the radio before too that like I really struggled with like reading, any of the great atheist authors' books on airplanes. I felt very uncomfortable for a little while. That's all gone now. I have to safely say. So whoever posted the comment, be patient. It didn't take too long, but it should fade. It should fade.
Good.
When I was in Tennessee near Knoxville, I had gotten a decal on my car. It was the American Atheist logo. And the day I put it on my car, I was filled with a bunch of apprehension because, atheism was like this thing that I wanted people to know. I wanted to like people to know that about me, but I was also terrified about like immediate retribution if I were to like post this. And most people, I imagine, didn't even interpret it correctly, right? Like my Muslim sister I was talking about, she thought it was just a science atom or something like that. And when I explained to her American atheist, she was just like, oh, okay, I get it. But in my head, I was just incredibly paranoid about how everyone was perceiving me. And I didn't want to have to deal with repercussions like a scratched up car or anything. But when nothing happened, I was just like, maybe there aren't as many people looking at me as I once thought. And I'm like, there's my brain thinking about like the Christian point of view, because in the Christian mindset, you're always being watched and you're always God's favorite project that you worked on. So you're used to that sense of paranoia. But it took a while for me to give that up, even when I was an atheist, to the point where I was
takes a while.
People. Yeah. Larry, what do you think?
Oh, definitely. It's been 50 years since I lost my religion, but I remember the first couple of years, You go to a meal, you feel like you need to pray. You just have the feeling that you're being watched all the time. It's a hard thing to shake, and you have to worry. I mean, you still have worries about hell and stuff, but you just grapple with it logically and realize that none of this, one, makes sense, or two, has any evidence to support it. And after a while, it fades, it goes away. And remember that there's a group out there that is there to help you if you're having trouble
souls.
living religion.
Souls, and everybody has them.
No, the group is called Recovering from Religion, and you can find them at recoveringfromreligion.org.
Okay.
Well, guys, I'm lucky in that I was never, not even inducted, let alone indoctrinated into a religion. But I'm pleased that you guys have managed to escape, and without terrible harm, because some people are left with actual PTSD as a result of the harm I think it's child abuse. But going back to the beginning of what this listener said, his mother didn't recognize, or her mother didn't recognize, that she was doing indoctrination. Well, they don't, do they? I mean, it's like nobody will accept that they're in a cult. They'll point to other people and say, that's a cult. But what I mean is not a cult.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How quick are religious people to point out cults in the world? And as an atheist, you just have to smile and be like, yeah, huh, okay. How are we defining that? I'll just keep that to myself. But yeah, it's very common.
The idea of somebody watching all the time is, in the city these days, coming true in the form of security cameras.
Yeah. Big brother.
Yeah. But hopefully it's not some terrible irrational power.
Dred, let's get your final thoughts on this before we close up. What do you think of the idea of still bucking the trend, or the idea of being watched even after you become an atheist?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really felt that, and I can't even remember feeling that so much.
Okay.
I had, during my religious experience, as a kid growing up in Catholic school, as a Catholic, and other sort of things I dabbled in, searching for spirituality. It was always a hope to have someone looking at me. I just never got that feeling. So when I finally divested myself of that, it wasn't. I wasn't looking over my shoulder. It was just an acknowledgement that really I'm on my own, and there's no one there. I don't have a guardian angel or a deity looking after me. I only have the Quab. I have only the Quab pushing me down onto the earth with his noodly appendages, and that's it.
And you got your hope that somebody was watching you fulfilled when you started to tread the boards of the stage.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
I had the same hope, and I achieved it by becoming a teacher. The only one who stands up facing the other way in a classroom.
Yeah.
Guys, what a wonderful conversation. We're now at the end of the show. Love to see what everyone would love to think about, or have our listeners think about, over next week before we come back. John Richards, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, the usual. And an extra, because I did a debunking of Stephen Mayer. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but it's had quite a few views. People like it. So take a look at Frethought channel. I've put the Stephen Mayer debunking in prime position. But of course, we also have the regular Frethought hour with an interesting guest. It was about digital currency yesterday, and we have global atheist news, and we have views on the news, which is going to happen in a few hours' time. In fact, what is it, in 3 hours' time for you guys who are on a different time zone, and some of you will be taking part in that. Wonderful.
Yes, very good. Dread Pirate, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, if I live stream this at now it's 7 a.m. Pacific saving time.
Will be wibbly wobbly, right?
PST, yeah. So 7 a.m. PST on my channel, Mind Pirate. I've been given a handle now. YouTube came up with channel handles, so you can just look for Mind Pirate, and we'll be there on YouTube. Like and subscribe if you like it.
Boudreaux, anything you recommend we check out?
I don't usually have stuff to plug, but because of our conversation, I'd like to encourage. I imagine everybody here has already done so, but if you haven't, I think something really important is if you've got the Facebook profile, make sure you put atheist down for your religious views. Does everyone do that?
Does anyone? That's actually not a bad idea.
Postfarian makes sense. Yeah, it took me. That was something that I struggled with too, because that's a very, very blatant way to. I mean, it's kind of nestled into your about page or whatever, so you have to go looking for it. But I suspect I've got friends that have seen it and been like, "Ooh, scary." But it's there.
Hey, why not next Halloween you just dress up as yourself and be like, "What are you for Halloween?" I'm an atheist. Whoa, terrified.
Yeah.
He's thinking for himself.
But you seem so nice.
I get that a lot.
Guys, you can find me on Let's Chat on YouTube. Larry, why don't you take us out?
Okay, my content can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and articles on the subject of atheism. My YouTube channel handle is now at Doubter5. And you can find my book, Atheism, What's It All About, on Amazon. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. And we'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Say bye, everybody.